Hey, what's up? I'm Doob Solo for Doomed and Stoned. I'm here with Tony Reed, prolific musical artist. Let's not get into the list of all of the things that you've done. Um, let's start off perhaps with what you've been up to in the last year,
Um, in the last year, starting now, a year ago, or this year.
whichever you prefer.
It could be. Well, um, earlier this year, Big Scenic Nowhere record came out in January. That would have probably been the first thing that came out. Um, there was some Moss Generator stuff, like a compilation came out um, of just stuff from the early era from 2002 to 2012. And I sometimes I get so lost in everything I'm doing because some of it is coming still. So working with Hot Spring Water, which is a live band, and we make records. Working with Moss Generator, just out playing a lot of gigs, getting and writing for the next record. Both those bands are writing for the next record. Um, the Pentagram thing, so joined Pentagram. I think it was official in July. It was announced. So we've just been in the studio making that record. I'm actually in the middle of guitars. I tracked a lead this morning, and I'm kind of at the end of that, into my guitar tracks. And now that'll be bass and mix. Bobby and Henry already flew into to Port Orchard here and recorded the drum. The drums and the vocals. And I'd done some scratch guitars for the session, and then now I'm able to come in and re-record everything and do some arrangements. So three working bands right now, and then my general work as a record producer or whatever you might, an engineer, studio engineer, um, has kept me busy too. I just was in right before the Pentagram thing. I was in Australia working on the new CD Jesus record. So I came right back from that and went into the Pentagram zone. So I'm kind of working on two major records at once, or two long projects at once. So my ears are pretty hammered. I guess you don't want to say that when you're mixing people's records, but I try to take breaks, you know. But so that's what's been going on for me.
Busy
There's
year.
probably other things I can't remember.
Sure,
I'm
for
kind of
sure.
in this focused zone uh, with Pentagram, and then playing gigs with the two other active live bands.
Very nice. Are you in your studio now?
Yeah, I'm in the like the drum room or guitar room. So the control room's there, and this is where I do drums and guitars in another room too. So yeah,
Nice.
and I get up every morning, usually around 5, and come in here and do some kind of work with music or watch science programs.
So, okay, you just said the magic word for me. I'm sorry. We're gonna have to take a little sidetrack here. Tell me what type of science programs you are into.
It's just answers with Joe, or that kind of stuff. Like they're like 20 minutes long, and he'll go through different things about science, and there's a lot of historical stuff as well. And they're just tidbits that can play as I'm doing other things, working on stuff. Or so I'll sit down and maybe eat or whatever and watch these things. And just use it when I'm taking a break. It's either that or
Yeah.
rock docs. I'm a rock doc guy, especially nowadays on YouTube. And there's all these uh, independent filmmakers, or even people just making great documentaries on bands, that the band should be hiring these people to put out to do documentaries from, because they kind of know more than the bands do. They've kept some really good records, and there's a couple of Sabbath ones that had stuff I didn't even that I thought I knew everything, and they're putting out information I didn't know. So it's cool. So that's what I do when I'm taking a break is watch, some programs like that. You know,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, I do have a question about your studio.
Okay.
So, I understand that you pretty much built it from the ground up because you didn't have access to the equipment and the environment that you wanted to make your music. So, how does that DIY ethic continue to inform your creative process?
So, well, building, I guess you could say I built my name or my reputation or my abilities from the ground up. The studio, I've had multiple places over the years, but yeah, it started from just growing up in a small town that had no recording studio and also not having any money. So it just started with, a tape deck. I mean, almost everybody back, especially my age, started with the boom box. Well, then you get two boom boxes and you play one and you overdub while it's recording to the second one. You use a mixer in between and you overdub, and you do that multiple times. Of course, there's tons of tape noise after two or three passes, but so I guess it was just, I had no other choice. And I started experimenting when I was in my teens with multiple microphones, all garbage. I mean, even my first studios that I actually charged money for. I mean, it was a quarter inch Tascam 388 8-track tape, reel to reel, and Radio Shack mics. And all you do is you take what you got and you make the best of it. And my goal was to make this sound like records I enjoyed. And I'd done that process before. The 8-track was 4-track. Of course, when I got a 4-track, I was completely freaked out because I've been using the 2-track things when I was young, and I got a 4-track and an 8-track. And of course, it went up to, in 2-inch 24-track tape for many years. And then now, of course, it's a computer, but I still have all the tape machines if I need to transfer any old tapes. I do a lot of that kind of stuff, restoration of old recordings, old records. So that's super fun to me to be able to take old things and bring them back to life. And now they're heard in a better, clearer way. Or I take modern recordings, like someone might send me something to master, and if I feel like it needs it, I dump it to a tape machine so I can get analog warmth, and then you have to eventually dump it back onto the computer because that's just the way you're going to send masters these days. But it can warm up the low end and kind of round off the top cymbal, a lot of the slicey digital sound in the top area.
Yeah.
So but that was just how to answer the question, I guess, go back to the question. Just focus always, just since I figured out how to when I first picked up guitar, the focus has been the same ever since. So going through these things, never really having any money, not having a lot to work with, but making the best out of it, has also made the way I work now efficient. I don't need all the gadgets. I don't work like that. Even in a digital world, I work almost like it's a tape machine still. Like, let's say, for instance, someone records a guitar solo. They don't like it. When we do it again, I record over what was, and I destroy what was there, like tape. A lot of people will make layers of things and then choose. I still treat it as, like, if that solo is not good enough, then we should get it right. Not have, let's just do it till it works. So I guess that's my answer.
Right. So, I ha I've had experiences where I've been in live situations and I've looked at the pedal board and it's insane. So I asked these musicians, can you tell me about this? So some of them will say that they have it for multiple bands. So that's interesting to me, but it's also really fun to watch these musicians get up there and just rock and roll. And I can think of a couple off the top of my head that I've seen come through our local venues. But I'm wondering for you, since you have this DIY, work with what you got to make it sound how you want, when you're going out into live environments, how do you control for some of these elements of sound that are just out of your control? Do you go in with a plan? Have you done it so many times that it's just second nature? How do you deal with that?
You mean like when we go to play live and the room
Yeah,
doesn't sound good?
yeah, or whatever it is.
I have a couple of things in my brain that allow me to get past bad sounding rooms or bad sounding bound sound, sound person. I'm confident that me and the musicians I'm playing with know how to how to sound great without even being mic'd. We just know how to sound good. We know our volume levels. If we didn't have any PA and only had a vocal, we know that how to play where that everybody can be heard and projected properly. So I think to myself, okay, well, we have that going for us. So at least we can sound as good as we can, I guess. And and also I listen to the anomalies of the room and what I could do in my guitar sound when I get up there. Maybe I should pull back the mids, or I'm hearing this frequency in the room. Maybe I should equalize for that when I get on stage, and then it won't be blasting into the room with that type of frequency. And then I've been for a couple 2 or 3 years. I've been wearing earplugs when I play, and that makes weird rooms. It closes out a lot of the bad sounds in a room. So, and it makes each night a little more the same on stage because it's closing out the garbage frequencies. And for the most part, I mean, your guitar dynamics get destroyed when you're wearing earplugs. I can't hear all the little nuances. I just know that I'm doing when I'm moving this volume knob down. I know that when I do it this far, that's what I'm going to get. I just know that about my sound. And mentioning the pedal stuff, I don't use any pedals. I for many
Right.
years I didn't even use a tuner. Uh, I just did the Hendrix thing, which is not always professional. So yeah, I just okay, I better do that. But um, I I see a use for them in certain types of um, applications. I think many players you use way too many, or they use like a phaser for two measures of some in one song. There's no, because to me it seems like the less there is to go wrong, the less you're going to be standing there trying to fix it. So many
Yeah.
times people their guitar stopped and they're going through 15 pedals trying to figure out which one's giving them the grief, stuff like that. When people do use them good, it's really, really neat. I think like Nick from Elder, I think he uses pedals really well. We did a lot of touring with him, and I was always very impressed that when he used them, it really was working for the atmosphere he was trying to create. So, I mean, there are good things, but I'm a minimalist
Yeah.
and trying to get things done in the most efficient way, and not having to haul a bunch of stuff around and keep you know uh, keep track of all that. Plus, I do a lot of the managing road man. So in everything that the least I have to worry about on stage, the better, because there's other worries,
Perfect.
you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. Perfect. You mentioned your volume knob. You want to tell us a little more about that?
The mods, like I okay, yeah, I have there. It's very tricky to explain, but all my live guitars have uh, I guess it's called a secondary or master volume on the guitars. Let me grab one real quick.
Yes.
So now I got to hold it up for the camera, I guess. So this is my main volume, right? Um, and this is what I call the master or the secondary volume. Okay, so let's pretend this one's all the way down and this one's all the way down. if I turn this up, it leaks sound, it leaks audio or guitar signal to this one. So this can be all the way down, but I can be getting just however much I turn this up or down will go into here. So if I'm at full volume and I'm playing and I want to get clean, I just do that, and it's to where this is set. So I don't have to accidentally turn it off. If I turn it all the way down, it's where this is set. This one is set. So I don't have to think about, oh, how far do I need to turn it? And I have settings in my mind. Okay, this song is this and this song is here. So when I do this up and down thing, I don't, that also allows me not to have any pedals, because I'm at full gain here and I go down and it gets clean. And I've got some mods on here to make different tones. Like this is actually a Reverend bass contour mod that Reverend does on their guitars. So I do that, which turns down the gain, the bass on the pickup, or turns it up. So I set my amp to be all the way down. I get a tighter, more metal sound. Then when I turn it up, it gets, fuzzy and whatever. So that's just being able to work with one amp. I do these little things with it, and it just makes it easier. And my luthier has all this. Okay, which one do you want? He has all the little specs kind of done out for me and knows everything I like. And it's good to just say, do the mod.
Yeah.
And I found that the volume one on accident, not on accident. I was looking for it. So there's got to be a way to do this. And I wired it up and it happened. I was really surprised, because I really thought that something weird would happen and it wouldn't work. Because I've never seen anybody else do that. That doesn't mean nobody has, or there isn't a guitar that exists where that's on there, but I've never seen it. So and like I said, it's on every one of my live guitars. Probably 5 or 6 guitars have it on there that I own. So
Lovely.
yeah,
That's really cool. Love it.
yeah.
So compared that to your studio setup, what have you got going on in there?
As far as guitars, or I mean,
How do you make your effects in the studio?
I rarely even use them in the studio, because I don't want to get too far beyond what I could represent live.
Sure.
Like, I think my most used pedal in the studio is a vintage MXR Phase 45. And I just got done using on the Pentagram record. But that seems to be the one I use the most. I might use a delay if I need a real rhythmic delay that is making the song move a certain way. It's part of its timing. But generally, I don't put too much in front. I might use a tube screamer if I want a Glenn Tipton, Judas Priest guitar. If I want that kind of late 70s, early
Yeah.
80s British steel sound or something like that. Or I might use, who knows, like, I don't know, just anything, I guess. OCD is a pedal I use. I take one of those as a backup in case what I'm using on stage. I always have that in my guitar box. But yeah, like I said, studio. I mean, the amp is a '69 Laney Super Group. That's almost what I do. Almost all my guitar tracks with that amp. It's the greatest amp ever made. I have a bunch of amplifiers, but that one seems to be the one that I can use on its own. And if I decide to put something in front of it, it takes the pedal really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and I have a 1980 high watt, 100-watt high watt, and that I use quite often as well. Or the Risen. That's a beast. That amp right there is a beast. That's when I want atomic, like heavy guitar sounds. Or like live, I use a Rolla, which was built for me by a builder in Tacoma, and that amp is a workhorse. It's really great for live. I never have to worry about it. It's always going to be solid for me. I'm just, kind of anxious to see what I'm going to be using in Pentagram live. I haven't figured that out yet. After I finish the recording here, I start rehearsing on my own. Like I can take the guitar out of the old Pentagram recordings and then play along to it. So I do it at live volume. I put it through a PA system and then have my amp set up. So I'll be able to test what stuff I'm going to use. I'll only really be able to use a pedal in front of it because I'll be flying into most places. So I'll probably see if I can get a Marshall JCM 800 because those are pretty common and they're not very saturated. I can get a decent amount of gain and then put a pedal in front of it. So we'll see what happens. That'll be some experimenting for sure. But I will be playing the trusty LTD,
Love it.
and that's
That's great.
I like it because it can take a beating. It doesn't cost very much money, and it's not one of my vintage guitars I'm trying to fly around with to get stolen or busted or what you know. But I've been playing that guitar for about 15 years, and it still holds up. It's been all over the world. It's a great guitar.
You did just leak a little bit of information about Pentagram's upcoming plans, but I'll leave it to our viewers to sift that out for themselves. I want to talk about Moss Generator. You ready for
Okay.
that? Yeah.
Yeah,
All
I am.
right. So,
Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I came across Moss Generator kind of a roundabout way. And the first few songs that I heard, I kind of got it right away. So, um, I don't know how to pronounce this. Is it Megiddo? All
Yes.
of Megiddo? Perfect. And then Lies of Liberty, I listened to that as a standalone album because I figure like I can't really compare this to any of the others. Um, Listening to Wild and Gentle Dogs as a rock and roll fan, growing up on that music, it just kind of clicked with me that I needed to keep going through your catalog. Um, so tell us a little bit about how Moss Generator got started, how you guys grew as a band, and maybe you can also help us understand with the diversity in the catalog, is there any common thread running through it that the casual listener might not notice?
Okay. Well, we formed in the like I think it was around November of 2000, and but years before that, so it'd be Scooter Haslip and Sean Johnson and me. And I'd been playing with Scooter through a lot of the 90s from 89 through almost off and on through that whole 90s. And Sean and Scooter and I had been in the band from 90 to 96 together that played more of like it was like more alternative, progressive alternative, like No Means No meets Shudder to Think and like Fire Hose, or what I mean, something. It was really interesting and fun and challenging music. And then we drifted apart. We all were in other bands during these times as well that were more successful than what we were doing. And then we came back around again and started a band that was agreed that the foundations of the band would be based on hard rock of the 70s that we liked. Because during the 90s, my writing was so schizophrenic that it makes the Moss weirdness look tame. Like, because I was taking in music constantly, and I was letting that flow into my writing. So it was it was hard for me to keep up with me and what I was doing, changing things in the music as I was writing. And I've always been prolific, so there's just tons of songs coming out, and that wasn't always fun for the other people in the band because the things are changing so much. So anyway, we said, okay, we're gonna make a band that's based in heavy rock. So we make the first album. First album is just a groove based hard rock, cowbell, the whole rock thing. And then we make the late great Planet Earth, which is a complete I don't know how we got from like this to one of the craziest records I've ever made in my life. Concept record. It's the most, it's one of the darkest, definitely the darkest record I've ever made. And it's probably one of my career highlights. For me, as a writer and musician, it's one of the highlights. And that's what Fall of Megiddo is on, that song. Um, and then from then we decided to go back to the rock roots because we couldn't play any of the record live except for one or two songs because it was so uh, dense with overdubs. And so we went back, you know, a couple of two or three more albums, some decent, some tours, you know, not too much US. There was some European stuff. We're on a bunch of different labels and finding our feet, trying to get going, and then some of those things, the not being able to go out as much as I would like, led to me like getting a different rhythm section in 2015, which were younger guys that could go out and tour. So we went out and toured a lot. And that's where I was able to splinter off and explore my younger days of a writer. I was able to be more of the kind of diverse writer inside of this hard rock thing. And that was Sean Booth and John O'Garrett were the rhythm section. And we, like I said, we did a ton of touring and we made some really great records that I feel are probably my favorite, mostly because I was allowed to be open in my writing. And by the time we got to Time Wounds, which is the last studio record, it was in full blown. I didn't care what I put on a record as long as it satisfied what I wanted out of it. And Sean and Jono were along for the ride and added some really cool textures, and they were just a part of the thing. Their enthusiasm for it helped everything come together and make that the record. Is one of the only records I've ever made that I can listen to. Actually, I don't listen to the records I make because I have to write them and record them. I don't want to. I'm done with them, you know.
Yeah.
But I think really, and the thread. Well, you're talking about the Lives of Liberty record. Let's go there, which is a hardcore album, and it was all songs that I wrote in the '80s when I was in a hardcore band called Lives of Liberty.
Wow.
So we literally took like 3 hours to record that record, or maybe 4. I would just say the song goes like this, and we'd record it. The song goes like this, and we'd record it, and it was cut live, and then I did the vocals. You know,
As
one
you do
take.
in hardcore.
Yep.
It's great.
So, done on an 8-track, and just trying to make it as raw as possible. And we'd play some like doom festivals where everybody's playing at 12 BPMs a minute, and we would open with those after the bands before us would just, and we would open with, and just to go like, hey everybody, like, you know, then we'd bring it back down to the groove.
Yeah.
But that was really fun to do because it was somewhat jarring,
Yes.
you know, to the audience. But and then we did other things where we'd go make more of a psychedelic type record, or we would do. There was a record of us freeforming. We just spent 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon and just set up and just recorded the jams and Cosmic Artifacts put it out. And that's cool. So just and it's really nice. These labels and people and supporters around us will allow us to do that. And I was thinking about that the other day, about the fact that's, I mean, of course I would like to be more successful as a musician, but in the level that I'm at, I don't have to worry about what anybody thinks when I make a record. I'm not trying to do better than the last one or try to get a better, we need more sales on the next one or whatever. I can do whatever I want. And there's enough of a fan base to support that. And so I've come to grips with that. Because of course, when you're young, you're like, I want to be a rock star.
Right.
You know, I want all the all that stuff. And as you get older, you realize, yeah, I mean, you start to take less and less. If we could play in front of 250 people every night, that'd be great. That
Yeah.
kind of, you know.
Well,
But I think,
I think, oh, sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I think in pop music, there's a desire to find the formula. And as a lot of artists mature in their craft, they find that the formula is authenticity. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is with a lot of people that make it when they're young. I feel like I didn't make my stride as a musician until I was in almost in my 40s. I didn't
Wow.
understand what I was doing. I was doing it, but I didn't understand how to control it. Like somehow, I mean, not control it, but just focus it. Not be so. Not
Yeah.
how to gather everything and make it right. For me, anyway. So a lot of times when people are young and they build a career, then they're stuck into playing that the whole time because that's what people expect from them.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
but I think the common thread through all this stuff it would be my voice. that
Yeah.
that no matter what we do, my singing is on there, and it's that. I mean, of course
Yeah.
you can hear, oh, that's a Tony lick, guitar wise.
Hmm.
you know and the musicians that are around me, you can tell, oh, that's a Sean Johnson thing. When you hear his drums, okay, that's him. You can hear a definite difference between Jono and Sean.
Hmm.
And playing in between those two really great drummers. Like when we sometimes we go back and forth. I might use one or the other, and they have such a different pocket that I'm kind of falling around in the middle of it, trying to figure out where I'm at, and that's cool to me. It keeps me on my toes as a musician.
For sure.
But yeah, the common thread would be the singing. I'd have to say, no matter what, in the big picture.
Perfect segue. Question about Moss Generator lyrics. Many of them are written in the first person. So to what extent are those autobiographical?
Uh, that when you get into the later albums, like Shadowlands and Abyssinia, they're fully they're fully autobiographical. The earlier records were about science fiction or maybe topical, the end of the world, or nuclear stuff or whatever. But then as I got older and went through things in life, I felt like I had to sing about those things. And what I found really interesting was to be able to sing about the human condition. If you really read the lyrics, almost everybody can, when when you get, because they're in such like they're inside of such a pounding sound, you can't understand everything I'm saying all the time. But if you start to read the lyrics, pretty much everybody could really understand. So putting those kind of personal lyrics inside of heavy rock was not it wasn't really challenging because I felt like the music was emoting that, it was making that possible. um and I feel like, and I've said this many times, I feel like the style of Joni Mitchell and how she could say all the horrible things about herself. She could actually say, I'm not I'm this person, but I'm also not a good person at the same time. I have bad habits. I do stupid things. I make bad choices. So, which everybody does.
Yeah.
So, being able to introduce that into what I was doing as an artist allowed me to exercise those. And I find that now that is not necessary anymore to write about those things. So, like Time Wounds is about me, but it's not. It kind of expresses outward towards people, and it sorry,
It's
it
all right.
it deals with time, so anybody knows what that the passing of time and what that means. So you're basically giving warnings to younger people on that, and then now I feel like I'm writing stuff that's just, it's not even personal anymore. It's observations of other people.
All
I
right.
see happen here. I'd like to write a song about it. I might not be completely right about it, but I'm going to put it into the how I saw it and how these words come together. So that's a new thing for me. And it almost seems to be situational with people that I know.
So
Like
you're
it's not
moving towards storytelling in your music.
to some extent, yeah.
Yeah.
And feel a lot of certain types of feelings. Um, and that's the, hot spring water music is personal as well, because that kind of, it's like a Southern rock meets, it's like Joe Walsh, Barnstorm era meets Allman Brothers and, you know, Todd Rundgren
Yeah.
or something like that, and so that's real fun. Dual guitars, harmonies. It's not, we're not loud. We can play weird small things, and it's not, nobody's bugged. But that's, and my vocals are way up front in that. My lyrics are way out front
Yeah.
because it's not loud.
Right.
And, but I'm not. I'm finding that my lyrics are. We're going through that same passage as Moss for a while, and that started to change. That's same with Big Scenic Nowhere when I write lyrics for that, when I'm doing the vocals and there's those don't I'm not connected with those at all. They just seem to be phrases that are coming out that sound good being sang or sung or whatever, and I mean, that's a big part of lyric writing. Does
Yeah.
this word sound good on that melody? So sometimes that's why lyrics are weird, because that you can't make anything sound good uh, in that vocal phrase. But um, okay, yeah, that's probably a good answer.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll go off
Absolutely.
all day, like, but
Do you want to talk about Hot Spring Water for a little bit? Whatever you want to say about them,
well,
what you got going on currently, plans for the
yeah, we're
future.
working on our fourth record, and Hot Spring Water is the rhythm section in the live band of Stone Axe. And Stone Axe was a band I had from 2007 or 8 until 2011. And I made all the music on the records. I did all the instruments, but live we had Mikey and Mike go on tour with us, me and Drew and I. And but then we're working on a country rock record back in 2010, and it never came to be. So many years later, the three of us picked it up and worked on it, the band and I, and then we got another guitar player, Bo. And so we've been out since 2019 or something like that. Like I said, we got 3 albums, and we're working on the fourth. And it's probably the funnest live band I've ever been in, because it's not a strain. A lot of times we do 2 hour sets of originals, and I can barely have broke a sweat, and we're having fun, and my voice fits really easy inside of this music. It's not screaming over the top of a loud band, and we all get along like really well. It's a nice camaraderie. So that's a super fun thing for me to do, and I like the songs a lot. It allows me to write in a like a power pop. I'd add a lot of a big star into that sound too when I'm talking about that band. Um, so yeah, and then yeah, the just thinking about the Stone Axe element of that too. But yeah, we never played any of those songs, but um, sometimes I forget about that band, about Stone Axe, and we made 3 records. Like,
It's awesome music. If anyone hasn't heard it yet, get out there and listen to it. It's great,
thank
especially
you.
if you like rock and roll.
Yeah, that's rock and roll, and Drew was the singer. Was him and I had a really great working relationship. He just could take what I wrote, and we would discuss for a couple of minutes. Hey, why don't you do you know this kind of vocal or that kind of, do a David Coverdale or and he could do a David Coverdale vocal. That's the thing. Like, the dude's voice was out of this world, so it really lifted that music into another place, because there wasn't that many vocalists with that kind of talent.
Yeah.
There just isn't, So that was it was fun to have someone put that on top of the music.
Do you think you'll be touring around with hot spring water in the future?
I don't think that's in the cards for multiple reasons. The band members can't do it, and I'm having a hard time finding a place in the genre that it's in. It's not like the heavy stoner genre where
Yeah.
it has the best grassroots. You can look up any town, find a band from that town, and say, "Hey, we need a gig," and you got one. I mean, it's fully help. Everybody helps each other in this community, and I'm finding in the more of the kind of what hot spring water is. I can't find that kind of support. It's like a dog
Yeah.
eat dog thing. Like they just don't want to help
Mhm.
you because they're trying to get the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
I may be wrong because I feel like I'm too busy to really dig into it.
Mhm.
So I might be wrong about that. And I've spent, so many years in this playing in this genre that I know a lot of people. So it makes it easier
Yeah.
to do even DIY tours or easy
Yeah.
to book.
So let's
So,
pivot
yeah.
into that. Let's pivot
What's
into
that?
that. Let's pivot into that going back to Moss Generator. Um, you said you have plans for touring with them. How far out do you think you'll be going from your home base?
Well, we've been working on just trying to, because about a year ago, maybe the original lineup, got back together. In my mind, there is Moss Generator exists in two universes, like there's two lineups to me. And the original one is out playing live now. I don't know how much touring we can do. So we'll see how that goes and how long I can sustain not not playing this music in front of a bunch of people. Um, but I'm hoping that the pentagram thing, like, kind of takes care of the live thing that I like. If
Yeah.
I and that's not going to be long tours either. But if I can kind of just get out on stage enough, then I might demand less from the bands that I have that are central to where I live. I
For
won't be
sure.
wanting to play all the time and try to push everybody to go on tour. If I'm doing this other thing, I can slow it down in the other areas and keep everybody happy, including myself. Maybe that's not easy. I understand. From what I understand, it's not easy. So we'll see what the future holds for live stuff.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wanted to ask about Stone Axe, but you already got into that.
Okay.
A little while ago, you talked about shocking your audience and pumping people up to get them ready for your set when you're playing live. What other ways do you like to connect with your audience through your music or through crowd work?
I probably, to a fault, communicate with the audience from the stage. You know, I like to get them, come on, that kind of stuff, or rock and roll, all that typical stuff I say, which usually comes from like Kiss records. A lot of my banter comes from Kiss records. Um, I think it's oddly enough, it's eye contact with people. It's when I'm playing, there's eye contact. I think there's a talking. There's like I've had conversations with people in the audience, or just stuff like that, making them feel like we're having a good time.
Yeah.
You're having a good time. Um, let's just let's do this till it's done, and then we'll go from there. I guess it's really about just connecting. If they can feel like they can connect to us, and we're not the stage isn't the barrier
Yeah.
between us, then I think that's good. And it usually has to do with banter or Even little things that a lot of people say they like, where when you mess up, you laugh it off. You
Yeah.
can tell when I'd make a mistake because I was like, or I just laughed about it. I could probably not even make a face and people wouldn't know I messed up. I'm alerting them to that. When I was young, I'd get mad because I was such a perfectionist when I was young that I would get mad about it, and that was not good. Um, so I think just letting them know that mistakes are made and it's okay, that helps too. And you can, especially if you make a real bad one and you laugh about it, you can usually look in the audience and see people smiling. Or,
Yeah.
ah, so that's really important. I know there's some bands out that don't communicate with their audience at all in between. I'm like, maybe that's part of what the mystique of what they should be on stage. But
Yeah.
man, that's so. I think it's because I was brought up with all those live records with all the killer banter on them from the '70s,
Yeah.
and that's where I come from, and where no matter what kind of songs we make on our records, our set lists are usually comprised of high energy. I feel like a live show should be something that has high energy, the faster, mid tempo. There's some, of course, slow things, but energy is the key. And even like that Lies Liberty record. I mean, that's the full fledged punk rock. But I think and I'm old school hardcore dude, but I think that's what the influence of punk would be on us, is the energy of the shows. You want that good, where the
Yeah.
vibe going. Um, okay, now I remember the question now. I was like off somewhere else. I didn't even remember. But yes, communication with the audience is key. Yes.
So when
Yes.
somebody's listening to your recordings at home or in their own environment, what kind of experience do you think they might be having? And is that something that you're considering in your songwriting, or are you really legitimately just coming from that place of wanting to express yourself authentically?
It's really um, I'm not really sure what I want people to get out of it, because I know that they're not going to get everything that I put into it. That's impossible. They're not me, right? Um, what I really would hope is that in some cases they are getting some of um, the emotion or whatever that's being put out. Not all of our songs have that kind of emotion. They're just bashing or whatever. But there's some stuff that, like, that's a moving section that has, we move into sections that I feel like are not just hard rock. They turn into something else, and that sonically or in the note choices evoke feelings.
Yeah.
I would like to think that anyway. They do to me, so I guess there's, you know, it can't just be me that likes that sound. Um, but it would be really cool if, I mean, ultimately, you would like for people to feel what you wrote the same as, I listened to, Led Zeppelin No Quarter live from Song Remains the Same the other day. I almost like, I, that one, I can't even handle the, I can't handle it. There's too much emotion going on.
Yeah.
And there's some records that are completely like that. Like, I can only listen to Jeff Buckley every once in a while because I can't handle what I feel when I listen to it. I like it so much that I can't even go. I can't make myself be in that space very often, and that's out of respect. That's not even saying I. That's saying I like it so much. You
Yeah.
know, I would
Yeah.
never expect anybody to be like that with what I do, but there are things out there, and everybody has those things that they listen to that drive them to a place that either is completely deep inside or just somewhere else. And I'd like to be a part of uh, that process. You know, if
Yeah.
not, fine. You know, I'm just lucky
I,
that people will listen, you know.
I enjoy listening to your catalog when I'm painting and making art. Really helps me focus. And depending on what I'm making, I pick something that's going to match the energy of perhaps the color or the movement that I'm using to create my piece. So
Oh, that's it.
rest assured, it's
Thank you.
working. Yeah,
Thanks.
what you're doing is definitely working.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Good
Yeah,
to know.
for sure. Yeah. If anybody wants to give you a shout out or let you know how much they enjoy your music or how they pull it into their lives, how can they reach out to you?
I mean, there's just the usual stuff. I mean, it's all there. So just go look it up, you know. Um,
Socials and whatnot,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, we'll make sure that those links are available wherever this video is posted. We are running out of time here, unfortunately.
That's
I think we should definitely do this again. But
okay.
before we go, is there anything more that you want to say about projects past or current, things you'd love people to listen to, that you'd love to get a little more exposure? Any plugs?
Um, Not really. Just like, I mean, I'm gonna plug Time Wounds. I mean, that record's a couple years old now, the Moss Generator one, but I just it's 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 good to me. So, um, but it's different than all the other records, and that's to be. Luckily, it's to be expected from what I do in whatever band I might be in. It's going to go, and someday I'll get it down to where I can really make everything on one in one band. But I haven't made it there yet. Anyway, yeah, just I appreciate everybody, and I'll keep making it, and hopefully you'll keep listening. That's what.
Absolutely. I will for sure. Well,
Thank you.
thanks for joining me.
Okay.
Appreciate your time. It's been great. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Thanks, Tony.
All righty.